All right, let's talk about taxes. And I don't mean Trump's taxes. I will hit briefly on that. But if you want to hear about the Trump taxes and all of that stuff, I posted a link to the Peddling Fiction podcast just a little bit ago. Go check that out. That has all the in depth you need on the whole Trump tax thing. Uh, the only thing I really want to hit on with that is the length of the article. Did anybody actually read the whole thing? It is insane. I think it was what he said on the podcast is like 10,000 words. I read the whole thing. It is a chore. And the reason they post or they put up articles like that are that ridiculously long is because they know absolutely nobody is going to sit down and read the whole thing. So they can put up a headline that says something ridiculous and give you the first three paragraphs that tell you all this crazy stuff to get people pissed off and riled up, and then spend the entire rest of the 9,950 words going back and explaining why everything they said at the beginning is nothing to be outraged by, but nobody's going to read it. And that's why the New York Times especially, oh my gosh, they post so many ridiculously long articles like that nobody's going to actually take the time to read. And if you do, you just come away from it feeling like you wasted 20 minutes of your life. It's awful. Uh, the only real big takeaway that I got from it was Trump knows or has a really good accountant. Like uh, managing losses versus income and balancing debt versus income to prevent him from having to pay taxes. It's eventually the bill comes due, but in the short term and even in the long term, effectively until he dies, uh, he just gets to defer taxes forever. And that's how it works. Like that's what rich people do. If they're smart and they know how to manage their money well, especially if you're a private business owner, that's what you do. It was all an outrage in 2016 because Warren Buffett had released his tax returns and Trump wouldn't. But Warren Buffett he's the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. So he is an employee of the company. He is not the owner or sole proprietor of the company. It is a publicly traded it's a public company. Trump runs his own business. It's completely private. So what he does with it, he has a lot more flexibility as a private business owner to defer taxes, to use business holdings and create create debt that he can then use to write off his taxes. Uh, and if anybody actually looked at it, Warren Buffett uses the same loopholes to pay less taxes than what he would have had to. He uses charitable contributions and all kinds of other stuff to keep his tax number down as well. Everybody does it. If you're smart, you should be doing it too. Which gets me to what I actually wanted to talk about in today is the failing of our public education system where it comes to actually preparing people for what they really need to know about life and how things work. Uh, I have a bachelor's degree in business management. Um, so I had 4 years of high school, about 4.5 years of college. I didn't do great in college, but I got out. But 8.5, almost 9 years worth of schooling, and at no point was I taught anything about tax code or how any of that stuff works. And unless you actually go into like tax law, you don't either. Like, our public education at every level is failing the most basic Americans on teaching us how the one thing that was robbing us every single day works. And it's a libertarian sticking point that I wanted to hit on is doing away with public education, doing away with the Department of Education, and privatizing everything. And everybody says, oh, but what about the poor kids? Or what about the disabled kids? Or the mentally handicapped? Or all all of these other things, it has been proven by private schools that they are willing to bring those people along and provide a much better service in terms of education to them than what public schools do. None of this stuff is the misconception and the myth that everything requires the government to step in and to run it is a lie perpetuated by the government. Private schools or charter schools or what have you, anything that replaces the current public education system that is run by the government would be better than what we currently have, because the government has proven over and over again that they are incapable of effectively or efficiently running anything. Everything becomes an indoctrination center or a propaganda machine for how the government is great and how you need the government. We're not being given the lessons that we need in life to actually go out and make a productive living and be productive members of society. When people are allowed to go to college and major in gender studies or all of these liberal arts degrees and programs that there is no job market for, and then get mad because they accumulate $50,000 worth of student loans and can't get a job, we need to get the government out of schools. The government is allowing people to think that they can go out and rack up this debt and that they need to have these. You don't need to get a degree in something that you're passionate about. You need to get a degree in something that will make a living for you. And if your passion can make you a living, that's awesome. But gender studies or any of these other ridiculous liberal arts degrees, those are not passion projects or things that are going to make a living. It's just a government tool to enslave you for the next 10 years of your life or more to them through student loans. You are now effectively the government's slave, working for them until you can pay them off. And you can never pay them off because you didn't get a degree that you can actually make a living with. If we privatized the education system, the market will provide. If there is a need for special needs education or schools for lower incomes, all of these things, there are scholarships available currently at private schools, charter schools. All of these things already provide a service, but the public sector does not want you to take advantage of it. In the whole COVID thing, how many situations have we seen where the public schools have been shut down or had all of these issues because of government lockdowns, while private sector schools are allowed to still do business? How many politicians send their kids to private schools as opposed to public schools, but then insist that the public education is the way to go and it's good for you and your kids? It's such hypocritical BS. They know that the system they have created and the system that they propagate is garbage, and it is running our youth into the ground. The next generation that's going to take over after us are getting the worst forms of education imaginable, while the upper class, the higher ups, their children are getting the best education from private schools. And it's why the cycle continues to repeat itself. It's why you see so many politicians whose children go into politics, because they keep on repeating the same cycle and holding us down while they elevate themselves up. It really is the haves and the have-nots. And the haves want to make sure that you always have not. And the first step to that is public education and keeping us all stupid in schools where we don't learn the things we need to know to actually make a living. I'll probably do another one of these tomorrow on something else. If you got any ideas on something you want me to talk about, let me know. In the meantime, have a good day. Enjoy the debates tonight. That's going to be entertaining.